Welcome, everybody. Joe Tarnowski with ECRM here, and I have with me today Shirley White, who's the founder, owner, and CEO of OTC Beverages. And she was a recent participant in our Euro Food virtual session, as well as the recent Beverages Black-owned ESI session. So, Shirley, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Joe, for having me. It's a pleasure.
So let's start off with, give us an overview of your company and your origin story, because I checked it out on the website. It was very cool. So just give us the background.
Okay. All right. So my background is not in the food industry at all. All I used to do before was just consume food and drink, and that was it. But having left, decided to move on from the City of London, because that's where my background is, banking and finance. I decided to look at what could be different and go into something a bit more edgy, where I can still meet a lot of people, but learn something along the way. So back in 2017, it was my father's 80th birthday. And at that party, there's a lot of people in the community that make their own beverages, homemade beverages. And there was this lovely ginger beer and this lovely sorrel drink that was made by one of the brothers from my father's church. And I thought to myself, it'd be really nice to basically have my own recipe with a ginger beer and sorrel, but have it in a really stylish presentation, use quality ingredients, but have it so that the younger generation can actually pick it up off the shelf. Because the older generation, like my father's generation, they used to soaking it and doing all these different things and grating ginger. You're not going to get a 20-year-old to do that sort of thing, not with the nail thing. So I thought to myself, it'd be really good to basically bring good quality flavors of the Caribbean to the younger generation and the wider population as well, but in a premium packaging to see what they think. So I went on a journey from then, and my father was very supportive, and my mother and the rest of the family. So I did some research around what's involved in going into a beverage and all that sort of thing, and how to work with a contract supplier, who best to work with. And most importantly, which was key for me, is that because when you manufacture something as opposed to making it at home, the flavors can be slightly different, but I wanted it to be as close to as homemade tastes as possible. So I made the recipe at home, and then I went on the journey of finding somebody to work with from a contract perspective. And then I asked myself the question, am I going to put it in a bottle? Is it going to be a plastic bottle? Is it going to be whatever? So I thought, clearly the plastic bottle is not the way to go. So I decided to go with a right weight bottle, which is really good for transportation. And I also wanted the rest of the packaging and everything to be completely environmentally sound, so it could just break down into the environment. So I checked that out with all the suppliers that I went into, that I investigated with. And that's why I came up with the sleeve as well, which I think gives it that premium look and makes it look like good quality. It is good quality though. And
so it matches the quality. The look matches the quality.
Absolutely, yeah. Because everybody, I mean, one of the things that you do when you sort of like get your beverage, and when I first got it into market was, I'd stand there and watch people's reactions to the drink, because I'd want to see what their faces are saying. It's like having your baby, do you think my baby's pretty? And people used to say, those words, refreshing, tasty, and looks good. Before they even opened the packaging, they were looking at the packaging, and then the taste was the added, the bonus to the whole thing. So yeah, so that's what I did.
Excellent. And take us through your products.
So what we have is a still and sparkling ginger beer, non-alcoholic, and in the sparkling versions we use the same sparkling process as Fever Tree. And we have a still and sparkling sorrel drink as well. So sorrel and ginger beer still versions are made very much in the Caribbean community. If you go into any Caribbean restaurant, you're going to find it. And there's also, with sorrel as well, just the whole plant is very good for your health. So you can actually put sorrel leaf into your salads. You can boil the product and use it as a tea. So there's many different ways of consuming the product, but it's very good for cleansing the system, cleansing the kidney, keeping you healthy. And the sorrel plant is on the same plant as the rosella plant with hibiscus and all those different things. So it's very, very good for you. And what with all of the pandemic and stuff, it's very good to basically look at what you're consuming from a soft drinks perspective. So that adds added benefit. And then with the ginger beer, everybody knows how good ginger is. It's good for the joints, good for digestion, and it gives you that little bit of a kick first thing in the morning. So I wanted to create products that could be drunk just every day, but it has added health benefits associated with it, which was very important for me.
I remember one time, a long time ago, I had a fever, and a friend of mine actually boiled ginger roots.
Yeah.
And then I drank that, and the fever broke by the end of the day. It was amazing.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, so that's very cool. And the OTC, talk about the what's behind that.
Yeah. So I was thinking about what to call it, and so what to call the brand. So I went on a journey, and so I've got two sons. Their names are Omari and Tyrone. So the O stands for Omari and the T stands for Tyrone. And I also have a nephew called Corey. So that's one of the versions of the OTC. Also, the drink can be bought over the counter. Also, it's organic traditional concoctions. And because I used to work in the city, I used to work with a lot of traders. And before over-the-counter trading came out, I knew all about what traders used to do, because I used to look after all of their data and sign it off and whatever. So I used OTC to hark back to the times when I was in the city. So many people come up with different connotations, original taste of the Caribbean and all that sort of thing. But primarily, that's what OTC stands for.
Okay, so you have a lot going on there. The only problem is what happens if you have any more kids?
That's not going to happen.
You're going to have to add another letter, or?
Yeah, something like that, or put some little tag on the end, I don't know.
OTC and.
Yeah, exactly.
So right now, where are you distributed? You're based in London right now?
That's right. So we're based in London, and we actually work with the wholesalers or distributors, I should say. Whole Foods, Tree of Life, which is great. We got signed up with them during the pandemic, which is fantastic. So they've got a very good name in the health industry amongst many different people. So we're working with them. We're also in the process of signing up with Stevenson Online. And that's from the ECRM platform. We met them through there. So working with Taylor and...
yes, I know him very well.
Yeah, so that's been really good. And then we sell into restaurants in London and takeaways. And we're basically just hitting the streets and letting people know about the brand. We're posting on Instagram, posting Facebook, all of the different sites, so that people know about the brand. So, and we've done continue to do some taster sessions as well to get it into, good quality shops for people to buy off the shelf as well. So we are pushing very hard.
Excellent. So, and you're looking to expand your reach.
Absolutely.
And the participation in our virtual session.
Absolutely.
Before we get into that part, I found it interesting. You just said that you were picked up during the pandemic. So how has the pandemic kind of impacted your business?
Well, it did impact it quite a bit in the sense that because I tend to plan everything at the beginning of the year, and that just comes from the time when I worked in the city, just doing everything sort of like come August, September time, you're planning for the following year. So I booked everything in January, and I thought, right, 2020, going to be really good, fantastic. So we had a couple of events in the Excel Centre and also the Olympia Centre, and we were going to go to Jamaica as well for an expo, which I was really looking forward to because I was going to sit on the beach the second week. But all of that got thrown up in the air. So the Excel event with Nope, that's a natural organic product event. So they basically put me in touch with the guys at the health store Tree of Life, and went through a conversation. We talked about the brand with the buyer, and they became interested. So we got signed up with them during the pandemic. but again, it's a process that you go through, and
Yeah.
to onboard everything and get everything right. So at that time, a lot was shut down. So everybody, even the buyers, were sort of like, what do we do now? So that's basically everything had to be shifted from that face-to-face contact to online. So I think everybody was going through that transition, and it affected us the same way, because the Excel Centre got turned into a hospital in London. I don't know if you heard about that.
Oh no.
The Nightingale Hospital. So the chances of having any exhibitions are pretty slim, and I think parts of it still remain as a backup for if we have a second wave. So yeah, it was a real eye opener, because I'm used to basically that people interaction and going to events and meeting and chatting and exchanging business cards. So it's just a change. You just have to learn to adapt, and I think that's the most important thing. And you have to be open to change and reevaluating the situation and moving forward from there.
Well, that certainly was the case with us. I was supposed to be in Rome in March at the Euro food session.
Wow.
And then all of this happened, and so that's why we realized that, like you said, business has still got to go on. It still has to happen. And the buyers needed to, one, they didn't have that much time. A lot of them were scrambling, and they couldn't travel, and the suppliers needed to get in front of them. So we were like, what can we do to kind of keep that going? And so that's why we launched the ESIs and the virtual session. So now you were in the Eurofoods virtual session, and you were one of the first, because I think we just launched the 5-minute meetings, and so you were one of those. So tell us about your experience, just I guess from the beginning, once you signed on, how you worked with our Euro team to kind of get ready, and then once you started using the platform.
Yeah, well, what I liked about it, and I mean, I had the option to go for a longer session, 10 minutes, and then I was told about the 5-minute session, and I quite like the idea of pitching in a short space of time, because I think you kind of know whether you're interested or not. So I made the decision specifically to go with the 5-minute session, because I wanted to pack in as many interviews and chats with buyers as possible. So the people that I worked with from ECRM were really good, because they took you through the platform, they talked you through how it would work, how the timing works, how you can interact and put notes onto the platform, afterwards downloading the information from the platform as well to basically follow up, and how easy that is. And they were always there for you, if you wanted to have a call or a chat, about something you weren't used to or didn't completely understand, they were quite happy to spend the time to talk you through that and go through a session as to how it works, and I found it really, really easy and interactive, which was really good, because you just see the thing ticking down, you can get yourself ready and sort out your hair and all that sort of thing. So I thought it was really, really good, and I think it's something that should remain even post-pandemic, because I think it's a good way of actually going back and checking on stuff. So yeah.
Well, we are going to keep it post-pandemic. This is actually going to be integrated into our normal thing. We'll have a combination of virtual and in person once this is all done, because there's too many efficiencies, there's savings, you're saving on travel, you're saving on time. Yeah. Time is something that we all can't get back, we can't make more of. And I think both the buyers and the sellers are realizing that they can, get a lot more done. So, and I think it was, one of the things that you mentioned, I think was a big focus of us, was the people. I mean, our digital team built a great platform, but it's really the people behind it that kind of work with you, are there for you. Because face it, you do one of these, you're dealing with hundreds of computers, hundreds of Wi-Fis. Something might happen. Something may go, and, to be left on your own is not good. So we make sure that we're there for you to take care of you and kind of walk you through every step of the way. Mm-hmm. So which tools did you use?
Well, I use the 5-minute set, but I use the chat, the notes function whilst I was talking which was a bit kind of like, because one of the things that was really interesting, because you're like this, and I'm old school, I like to go back to the pen, you know, but the thing is, what happens is you then take your face away from the screen, and that can be a bit off-putting, and because you've only got 5 minutes. But I think one of the good things is, once the session was over, and if you wanted to take a quick note, you could look straight at the screen, because you have to, because you're typing away. And then once the call is finished, then you can just continue typing away the information that you need to capture, and then you can print it down as well. So yeah, I just found the whole thing really interactive, and I'd advise anybody that's looking to use the platform to utilize the resources that the platform provides, because I think it's great.
And you brought up a really good point. And this is something that I've actually done videos about, you know, for best practice videos. Is looking at the screen, looking at the camera, being there, because you're right. If somebody's writing on the pad, this is what they're going to see.
Yeah.
So it looks like I'm not paying attention, even though I'm taking notes.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that, and even like right now, if you could see the difference, now I'm looking at you, now I'm looking at my camera.
Yeah.
So there's even a difference there where you need to you want to look at them on the screen to make sure that that they're paying attention, they're engaged, but you also want to look at the camera to make sure that
and that's something you get to do actually, because you want to look at the person's face, but I have to remember you look at the camera as well, so
and I mean, one way to, and especially like gestures and pointing, like if I point at you, it's like that. On your end, it looks like that, but if I point at the camera, then it looks like I'm pointing at you. It makes a difference. And the one way to solve that is if you put your camera and computer further away, because then you're looking at them, like there's not as much of a difference, but then you're not there, and so there's a lot of different ways to do it. But tell us about your pitch, because I think one of the cool things about that you chose the 5 minutes is there is a benefit to giving yourself constraints. It's, if you have 5 minutes, you got to get it done. So how did you kind of assemble your pitch?
Well, first of all, what I did, once I decided I was going to go for the 5 minute pitch, I thought about what I'm going to put on the presentation. And I think creating a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation with the key components of what your brand is, because that's what buyers want to hear. They want to hear about ultimately your background, your brand, your product, where you see it going, and why it fits their platform, if you've done your research on that particular company. So the first thing I did was think about, what am I actually going to say in those 5 minutes? And I think once you actually take the time to sit down and write a PowerPoint presentation, it kind of like gets everything going in your head as to how you're going to present your offering. So that's why doing a presentation, I think, is a good starting point, a good foundation to move you forward. So so that's the first thing I did. And then I thought to myself, how am I actually going to speak? Because 5 minutes, you don't have that long to basically click through a presentation and say, I'm moving on to the next page, sort of thing. So the presentation was sent out previously and attached to the invites. I think some buyers got a chance to look at it, maybe others didn't, and they looked at it post the chat. But it was good for me because the pointers that I had, it was only like 2 or 3 slides, but it was enough to trigger different points in my head as to what I wanted to get across within the interview. So I think I would advise anybody that's looking to do an ECRM presentation to do a PowerPoint presentation prior to that, 2 or 3 pages, but just focus on some key elements that you think you want to get across about your brand, your brand, your story, and where you're going and why it fits that particular buyer and that particular company.
You nailed it. You nailed it. I mean, because that's, in fact, I talked to a buyer recently, and that's kind of what, I would ask them, what do you want to see in a presentation? And it was almost exactly what you just said, because the product information is important and the fit to the retailer, and doing the homework, like you said, doing the homework so that you can tell them how it fits within their offerings, and they love that stuff. And I noticed that in your pitch, you did not include the origin story, which is good because that takes time. That's like for the next meeting. That's, when you have time, you get that follow up, you can give them the whole thing, and they could always, check out your website. So just
Absolutely.
efficient and just bang, get it out
Yeah.
there. So I
Yeah.
like that. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you also did the beverage efficient supplier introductions that we created specifically for Black-owned businesses.
Mhm.
Now that was a little bit different. You were presenting to many buyers,
Yeah.
and you had 10 minutes, so it was probably a lot easier because you had your pitch down. How was that experience? Did you work with our guys the same way to set up that?
Absolutely. I think even though you feel quite confident with regards to what you've done previously, I think because you're working with a different platform and a different audience, I think it's good to actually have a conversation with the team to understand, the eCRM platform is the same as Arrange Me, but it's a different market.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things that, and I think I was saying this to you earlier, working or speaking to the US market is different. And you need to understand what it is that you want to get across with regards to your product offering. So having the call beforehand to understand how it's going to work, because I think it was relatively new, focusing in on Black-owned brands was just basically, a good thing to do to have prior to the call. So the 10 minutes was different in the sense that you have 10 minutes so you can actually walk through your 2-3 slide presentation and give a really good overview of yourself, where you come from. And I think a lot of people found it interesting that I wasn't from the food industry. That wasn't my background. I just sort of like came into this and decided to do what I did. I mean, the fact that I'd actually educated myself around the market, I did a grade 2 food certification with food public health in the UK, and then this year I actually did the HACCP 4 grade 4 level 4 course, which I'm still waiting for the finals to come through on that. So for me that was important because that means that for the next level, if I decide that I want to go into manufacturing and do the thing myself, then I've actually got that good foundation and with regards to understanding how things work. So the ESI platform thing was good to go through. Mm-hmm. And the 10 minutes was sufficient to get your message across. I mean, a lot of people would say 10 minutes, what are you going to speak about? But trust me, it goes really, really quickly. 10 minutes, when you start talking. And if you've got everything in your head, you still need, actually it's 8 minutes, because you've got to give the buyers time to ask any questions that they may have. And some of them did come back, asking which distributors are working with, etc., etc. So there's a lot of follow up to do on that as well.
And speaking of follow up, and well, first of all, you mentioned when we talked earlier that the mix of buyers that you met with, especially on the virtual session, was very relevant to you, right?
Yeah, I think the actual matching is important, and that goes back to the team and how they actually research your brand and your products. And I think that's critical, because what you don't want is buyers to switch off and not be interested in what you have to offer. And if the consultant on your side doesn't do their homework on your brand and you as an offering and match you up with the right people, then you're going to have faces looking at you like, oh, okay, we have to sit through this, do we, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that the way that your team and your colleagues approached the brand was important, and they understood that they have to do the right matching and research to match you up with the right buyers, which was good.
Yep, all the prep work. It's a lot of it is in the prep. I mean, that's what sets you up for success.
Absolutely.
And now you're in the process of follow-ups with everybody from those two.
Yes, so that's important as well, and I think as a supplier, you've got to realise that these things take time, and buyers are very, 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 very busy people, and I think from my perspective, coming from the banking and finance industry, we're used to sort of like the snap, quick, kind of response, you know, why haven't you answered my email? I sent you a chat, what's going on, sort of thing. But that's not how it works in the food industry, you know, because they have the buyer could be looking over a number of different products. They could decide at any time that they're going to drop something and park it and move on to something else. So there's all these different things that can impact the conversations that you've initially had, and that could make you feel like, oh no, they're not interested in me. But as a supplier, what you need to do is keep that line of communication open, send emails, give them a call. You know, if they say no, phone me back in 3 months, or reevaluating things, etc. You know, particularly now, and again, you know, with the pandemic, so many different things have caused people to reevaluate, you know, companies to reevaluate what it is that they're actually going to be doing going forward for 2021. So you've got to be aware of that and just hold fire and keep things going, but keep the lines of communication going in between. Drop them a quick note and stay focused and be patient. I think that's a good thing.
All really, really important points.
Yeah.
I think the patience part is not easy for everybody to do, but
Yeah.
it is essential, especially like you said, it's very uncertain. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
lot of things going on, a lot of people juggling things.
Yeah.
You could get lucky and maybe they, you know, they're out of stock on something
Yeah.
and they
want
need, you know,
something new, you know.
yeah, so there could be new opportunities that otherwise, you know, it's just keep engaging with them like you mentioned. So
Absolutely.
where do you see, I know we talked about this before, but where do you see virtual playing a role in the future when this is all done?
I personally feel it's going to continue. I mean, I started working with virtual years ago in the city. We used to have video conferencing with it between each other quite regularly. And even the working from home, I mean, a lot of people saying, oh, how are you finding the working from home? I'm like, oh, I've been doing it for years. You know? So it's to me, this is quite normal. So, but I mean, the only challenge with the lockdown was that you weren't able to go out and see your friends and interact as much as you normally would. That was the only downside. But the working from home for me was fine because I'd always be going out meeting people, you know, going down to Canary Wharf or to the city or the West End and meeting, having coffee chats and whatever. So it is very familiar to me. But I see virtual continuing. That's what the next generation are used to. Mm-hmm. The older generation just have to get with it and understand that's not going away. And I can only see it improving. You know, soon we'll have like 3D things. You know, we'll be doing it on 3D, and you know, technology is just moving so fast. So we just got to embrace it and move with it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, especially on the moving, you know, the evolution of it. I mean, since your virtual session, we've already launched some new features.
Oh, wow.
We have roundtable discussions. We just did them this week for the first time, where it's multiple roundtables, each one on a different topic, and they're moderated, and they're up to 10 people each. And they filled up instantly. Within 2 minutes, they were all packed.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And so we're incorporating that, other thought leadership things, videos embedded into the platform, short videos that you could watch during your breaks. And then we have a lounge, so just to go to and hang out, and a company break room, which, you know, if you have multiple people, it's a private area for you guys to go and talk. And we're just going to keep evolving. We're going to keep based on feedback and keep adding things in. But I do look forward to, you know, the in-person coming back. We will have a mix of both, but hopefully it'll be here sooner and later, and me and you will get to meet in person. Well, we may get to meet in person sooner anyway.
Absolutely, yes. I'm going to make sure that happens.
Definitely. So we'll just keep in touch. You just give me a heads up, and we'll set that up. So, so great. Thank you for everything, and thanks again for participating in both. And I look forward to catching up with you in person.
Yeah, definitely. I too with you, Joe. Thanks for your time and thanks for your support to all of the team. Thank you.
All right. I'll pass it along. Thank you.
Thank you so much.